So why put it into the Constitution if the Albanese government wants to experiment with a new body? Why shouldn't it just be tried first by legislation?
It's a good question, and a number of people have asked that. The point is that that is not what the proponents of the Uluru Statement from the Heart want. They do not want. They primarily don't care about the voice giving advice. What they want is a body into the Constitution that, as I said before, will give them an equal status with the Commonwealth and the states. They want the ability, and they've made no bones about this. Professor Marsha Langton, Professor Megan Davis have made no bones about the fact that this is all about, it's like a Trojan horse, or I call it constitutional malware, which will allow them to precede the other demands of the Uluru Statement, which are truth-telling, treaty, reparations, and some form of Aboriginal sovereignty. So that's why the push to put it into the Constitution. They want constitutional recognition which has teeth, and this and the views of Justice Ian Callanan and Kenneth Hayne and Greg Craven have all conceded that this will give the voice teeth. It will have teeth.
So those who referred to it as a third chamber, Malcolm Turnbull, adopted that. Those who say it's a fourth arm of government are right, are they not?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. I was surprised when this question of giving advice to the executive government, that's been in the draft wording since Prime Minister Albanese released it way back last year, the fact that it included executive government, but it only started to come into the public discourse in recent months when people started to realise just what a dangerous addition that was, and started to try to walk that back. But when the Attorney General and the Solicitor General gave advice to the referendum working group, we are not privy to that advice. We are now privy to what purports to be the Solicitor General's advice, but it seems clear that advice was remove executive government. But the referendum working group said no, and the Albanese government capitulated to that. So in my view, that's a good example of the voice exercising a veto, even in embryo. And so there is no doubt that even by virtue of the fact that they can take matters to court, they can delay matters, that's effectively exercising a veto. They will not just accept a no. And so it is a third chamber of Parliament. I have no doubt about that.
Didn't Mr Albanese himself say that only a very brave government would ignore the advice of the voice?
He did say that, and I absolutely, I say in my book, what are the odds that a Labor Greens government would overlook advice from the voice, particularly if you consider Article 19 of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which says that governments must obtain full, free and prior informed consent for any legislation affecting Aboriginal people. And that's a covenant that we have subscribed to. In my view, it forms part of our common law. So if you couple that with the moral or the constitutional heft of the voice, that's a very powerful argument for them to take their grievances to the High Court.
At this stage, I think it's important because our views, your views and my views, could be misrepresented. And I hasten to say that I am certainly not a racist. I come from a Eurasian family. I certainly know about racism, and I'm not going to talk about that. But when I was a young lawyer or law student and a lawyer, I volunteered to work with what was then a non-governmental Aboriginal legal service started by Hal Wooten, who subsequently became a judge. He was then Dean of Law at the University of New South Wales, already a very successful QC.